excited and I think, okay, I can do this and I can use this to build up my knowledge. But remember, the next thing to remember is that logic is the process of non-contradictory identification. Remember existence. Existence does not contradict itself. There is no contradiction in existence. That's not to say that we can't come up with some strange contradiction in our logic. Happens all the time, right? You think people fight all the time because we all come to different conclusions for different reasons. So here I could say, well, if I were to make the statement without observing closely, I could say that, let's see, you guys are sitting over there, all utensils are on the right side of the table. Well, I can make that statement, but that statement assumes that I know which side of the table is the right side and I have a good concept of a utensil. Now, that's a contradiction because if I look at the table, that's obviously not the case. Instead of saying all utensils, maybe I should have said all forks are on the right side of the table. So logic is what allows us not only to begin to identify things, but to make sure that those things that we identify don't contradict other things that we know. It is a process of non-contradictory identification. Now, an interesting quote about contradictions in existence and epistemology. This comes from Atlas Shrugged. This is one of the most famous quotes that have come out of Objectivism, in my opinion. It says, "Contradictions do not exist. Whenever you think you are facing a contradiction, check your premises. You will find that one of them is wrong." Okay, and that comes from a character originally named Hugh Axton in the book Atlas Shrugged. So that concludes the section on epistemology. That gives us a sense of the two primaries, the two axioms and basic ideas of metaphysics and epistemology. Now, Objectivism holds that as we move forward with the philosophy, each piece or branch of the philosophy builds up from the next. So we take the axioms, the axiom of existence exists, and the axiom of consciousness, and we use that to get to the next branch of philosophy, the branch of ethics, the branch that says, what's the right thing to do? How do I make my decisions? What's right? What's wrong? And to give you an overview of ethics, I have another quote here. So this comes again from the Objectivist epistemology. "A moral code is a system of teleological measurement." Okay, teleological meaning purposeful, of teleological measurement, which grades the choices and actions open to man, according to the degree to which they achieve or frustrate the code's standard of value. The standard is the end to which man's actions are the means. A moral code is a set of abstract principles. To practice it, an individual must translate it into the appropriate concretes. He must choose the particular goals and values which he is to pursue. This requires that he define his particular hierarchy of values in the order of their importance, and that he act accordingly. So here we see that ethics, the ethics of self-interest, for the single word or phrase that Objectivism uses for ethics, is based upon these values. We're going to see some more of those values very, very soon. But we have to step back for a minute and say, well, where do these values come from? What is a value? What's the source of a value? And how did I go from this, set of objects and ideas and abstractions and concepts to this thing called a value, which helps me to figure out what actions to take? And there is a very interesting roadmap that takes us from metaphysics and epistemology and leads us into ethics. And so we're going to talk about that roadmap. So that roadmap says that ethics, beginning with metaphysics and epistemology, then depends on this thing called life in order to get to our values. We have to have life. So let's see how that goes. So we start with existence, right? So I'm on 5C1 now, if you want to follow along. So it says that existence has the set of concretes or facts about the world, right? Existence exists and there's lots of things that exist. And then consciousness allows us to perceive those things that exist and abstract concepts from those things that exist. And then once I've abstracted those concepts, eventually I'm going to find a concept of life. I'm going to realize that there is this thing called life. And even more interesting, I, as a man or a woman or a person in general, have life. And once man discovers this concept of life and realizes that he has life, then man is faced with a fundamental choice. And that fundamental choice is to live or to die. And it's an interesting thing to think about, because for the most part, people work under this very simple assumption that, well, you know, I'm alive and I'm doing the things that I want to do, and I'm just assuming that I'm alive and going to be alive. But that's a very kind of critical crux to how, in objectivism at least, epistemology gets us into ethics, because this understanding of my own life is what eventually takes me to, well, if I have life, then I have values. But why is that? Why does life give me values? So we're about to look into that. So we understand we have to choose between them, and there's a quote from Atlas Shrugged on this. There's only one fundamental alternative in the universe, existence or non-existence, and it pertains to a single class of entities, to living organisms. So with this choice, let's say that man chooses to die. And a certain choice man may make. So even though I may not be able to keep myself, for example, from breathing, I can stop myself from eating. I can stop myself from drinking. There are things I can do to simply cause myself to die. And if that happens, then the best description I have is simply, well, then you will die. And nature will happen. It is in the nature of life eventually to die. But if man chooses to live, then in order to live, we have to follow certain principles. I know that in order to live, I have to breathe. So I breathe. I know that in order to live, I have to eat. So I eat. And these very basic ideas that I have about life start to give me ideas about the actions I have to take to maintain my life. And those ideas ultimately lead to me understanding first my own metaphysical nature better, which ultimately, after I understand my own metaphysical nature, gives me an idea of what my values are. So let's look at the quote about the metaphysical nature of man. It says, "To think is an act of choice. Reason does not work automatically. Thinking is not a mechanical process. The connections of logic are not made by instinct. The function of your stomach, lungs, or heart is automatic. The function of your mind is not. In any hour and issue of your life, you are free to think or to evade that effort. But you are not free to escape from your nature, but from the fact that reason is your means of survival. So that for you, who are a human being, the question to be or not to be is the question to think or not to think. A being of volitional consciousness has no automatic course of behavior. He needs a code of values to guide his actions." So man has his life and understands to maintain it, he needs this code of values. So life gives rise to values. So we have another quote to help exemplify that. To show that life gives rise to values. "The existence of an inanimate matter is unconditional. The existence of life is not. It depends on a specific course of action. Matter is indestructible. It changes its forms, but it cannot cease to exist. It is only a living organism that faces a constant alternative, the issue of life or death. Life is a process of self-sustaining and self-generated action. If an organism fails in that action, it dies. Its chemical elements remain, but its life goes out of existence. It is only the concept of life that makes the concept of value possible. It is only to a living thing that things can be good or evil.